Alright guys, Arsenal and Newcastle have just played out a 0-0 draw, and it wasn't the most exciting game ever. It was a bit disappointing, to be completely honest. I thought this might be, a cracking game going into it, because Arsenal have played some of the best football they've played in years over the past few months or so, and first time in God knows how many years, maybe 15 years I reckon, since they've looked like that they could potentially win the league this season, like halfway through the season. And yeah, Newcastle as well, their best season in possibly 20 years so far. So this had everything going into it, like it could be a great game, but it wasn't really that in the end. I think from what I can remember, it took about until the 87th minute for Nick Pope to be properly tested in terms of having to make a great save, and I think it was Nketiah who had the shot, and yeah, it wasn't a poor game. Ramsdale at the other end was hardly tested either. It just wasn't a game full of chances really, and it was quite a feisty game at times. Well, no, not feisty, but game where there was niggly tackles. Like I think there was 4 yellow cards for each team, which I felt was a bit much. The referee, I thought, at times almost seemed like he wanted to dish out yellow cards. That there were a few tackles where it was was that even a foul? And he's given a yellow card, especially one for Joe Linton and Callum Wilson, from what I can remember. I thought the referee. I don't know if it might have been Darren England, gave out yellow cards very easily, and yeah, I don't really like to see that, to be honest. Players constantly walking a tightrope throughout the game. I think it can spoil the game a little bit, in terms of you want to see players going to challenges, wanting to get the ball and maybe leave a bit on their opponents. I know that doesn't happen as much these days, but it's part of what makes football a great game to watch, in my opinion anyway. But yeah, there really weren't many chances either way in this game, and I felt Arsenal dominated early on. Odegaard looked like he might be about to run the show again. Saka played well at the start of the game, but after about 15 minutes or so, it just seemed to die down a bit for Arsenal. Not many chances were really created from that point onwards. In fact, the only time they really came close to scoring after first 15 minutes or so in the first half was a header from Gabriel, which he didn't time the best. I didn't think it was a looping header, and it did go just wide, but yeah, other than that, there weren't a great deal of chances created by Arsenal. Newcastle, in fact, had the best chance of the first half, probably through Joe Linton right at the end, where, to be fair, it does come at him quick. You can't really expect him to score that. But yeah, Newcastle, they didn't play their usual style of football. They weren't getting forwards at all, really. There wasn't as much intensity, which may have been a smart move from Eddie Howe in the end, because I think Eddie Howe would have gone into this game happy to get a point out of it, because it is the hardest game in the league at the moment, going to the Emirates, because Arsenal haven't dropped a point until tonight there. I think Arsenal have only dropped 5 points before tonight, all season. That's my laptop giving off a notification about virus and threat protection or something. Yeah, you needed to know that. Where was I? Yeah, Newcastle. Yeah, Arsenal have only dropped 5 points this season, 3 to Man United and 2 to Southampton. So, and they were both away from home. So yeah, a point at the Emirates is an amazing result for Newcastle when you put it like that. And considering that they've still got, I know they've now drawn both their last 2 games 0-0. They've still got players to come back from injury. Maybe not players who would necessarily start for them at the moment, but Jonjo Shelvey can definitely fill in midfield. Alexander Isak, he's only played a few games for Newcastle so far. but in the few games he did play at the start of the season, he looked very sharp, especially in that game against Liverpool, from what I remember. Scored 1 goal and had another disallowed, unfortunately, really tight offside. So, yeah, it is still, there are still positives for Newcastle over the next few weeks, but yeah, they were always going to hit a stumbling block at some point. I think their style of football, and I'm talking about this as if it's like if they've hit a stumbling block. It's not really. It's a 0-0 draw again away at Arsenal. It's hardly crisis, but there was always going to come a point in the season where Newcastle's winning run was going to stop. Basically, is the point I'm trying to get at with the intensity they play at. So yeah, I think they did more than taking a point tonight. I think maybe there might be a bit of disappointment that Almiron maybe didn't produce a piece of magic, but you can't expect him to do that every single week. In fact, there was even a moment in the second half where there was a nice through ball nearly played into him, and he nearly managed to work an opportunity. But yeah, there wasn't a lot going for Newcastle, to be honest. I think even with 20 minutes to go, they showed their lack of ambition to win the game, in terms of bringing on Chris Wood and Alan St. Maximin for Wilson, and I can't remember who else came off. It may have. I think it might have been Almiron actually, or it might have been Murphy who came. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember. But yeah, they were more than happy with the points. It is the point here, I guess. But Arsenal, I think they'll feel disappointed that they couldn't find a way through. Newcastle did defend very well, sat deep at times, and they have got some really good defenders. Newcastle, they've got Sven Botman, who's been one of the signings of the season, doesn't get talked about enough. Really good player, and could become a brilliant defender in the next few years or so. Who knows? Kieran Trippier and Dan Burn at left back, I thought played really well as well. Sharp as well had a really good game. So yeah, some really good performances from Newcastle defensively. But Arsenal, yeah, I think they'll feel disappointed that they couldn't break them down, and it did take 86 minutes or so to create a clear-cut opportunity. But nevertheless, we'll get into some player ratings. We'll start off with Arsenal. I've given Ramsdale a 6 because he didn't do anything wrong, but at the same time he didn't really have anything to do. So I think 6 is probably fair. And then in their defence, I've given all 6s bar Zinchenko, who I've given a 7, because I thought that there were times throughout the game where he just produced moments of class. Nothing that'll live long in the memory, but just moments where he's in possession on the halfway line and he's able to wriggle his way out of a tight situation or pick a pass. He could easily be a central midfielder in truth, Zinchenko. And then the rest of the defence I've given 6s because, again, they weren't really troubled that much, or tested anyway. And I think any time there were set pieces, there were a couple of moments where it maybe didn't look 100% certain. And it's not that he did anything wrong tonight, William Slee, but I think over the past couple of games I've noticed that there have been a couple of errors in his past couple of games. There was the penalty he gave away against West Ham, and also the second goal they conceded against Brighton, Evan Ferguson's goal, who actually scored again tonight against Everton, so fair play to him. But yeah, it's maybe been the worst run of games in William Saliba's very short Arsenal career so far. But he's been brilliant on the whole this season, though. So I think we can let him off with it. And then into the midfield, I've given Odegaard a 7 because if anyone looked like creating anything tonight for either team, it was Martin Odegaard. So yeah, I've given him a 7. And Partey and Xhaka I've given 6s. They did their jobs in midfield. Nothing spectacular really. And then up front, Saka I've given a 7. I thought he was the one out of the front three who looked most like creating an opportunity, or creating something anyway, especially in the first half. He made a few good runs, surging forward with the ball. And then Nketiah and Martinelli I've given 6s, because Martinelli I just didn't think really got involved enough in tonight's game. There were a couple of times where he tried to put a cross in, but it got blocked, especially in the second half. And Nketiah, I think I can't really give him more than a 6 because he produced a couple of moments where he has this really good ability in Nketiah of managing to receive the ball on the turn and roll his man marker and get a shot off, and he sort of did that for his opportunity at the end, but I felt as though he'll feel disappointed that he didn't score it, so I can't really give him more than 6. You can probably tell my voice is really going today. It's I've been struggling with it a bit of late, so you know, please be generous with that. But yeah, Newcastle. We'll get onto Newcastle. Pope have given a 6. That might be a bit harsh because his save at the end was massive to Newcastle's victory. In fact, actually, I'll up it to a 7 for that. Trippier, I've given a 7. Botman 7. Burn 7 as well. Because I thought they defended all superbly. In fact, I'm going to up Botman to an 8. Botman can be my man of the match this game because I've just realised I haven't actually picked a clear man of the match. So I'll give Botman man of the match for this game because he out of all of them, I thought he was the one who was particularly good in defence. Shara I've given a 6 because I felt there were a couple of occasions like the Nketiah chance. I think it was him who Nketiah managed to spin, and I don't think he got tight enough to his man. So, sorry, I put that the wrong way around. I think he got too tight to his man in that situation, sorry. And yeah, I'm still not wholly convinced on Shara. I think he has games where he's superb for Newcastle, but also can have games where it is him who tends to make the error for them. So yeah, and then into midfield, I thought Longstaff actually was their best midfielder today, Newcastle. I thought he did a very good job at times at getting the ball out of dangerous areas, and I think because of Arsenal's desire to go down the right with Odegaard and Saka the obvious threat there, Longstaff did have a little bit more space to play in on the right of the midfield, so that's where Newcastle's threat mostly came from at times. So I've given him a 7, and Guimaraes and Willock I've given 6s, similar to Partey and Xhaka for Arsenal. They did their jobs, but nothing spectacular in this game. And then Almiron and Wilson I've given 6s. Again, didn't do much, but when they got the ball, they sort of played with it, I guess. But they just couldn't really create much. And then Joe Linton I've given a 5 because I'll be honest, I didn't notice he was playing, and that's not great if you're an attacking player. So yeah, he's maybe a bit harsh to get the worst rating up in this match from me, to be honest. But yeah, I've given Sven Botman the man of the match in this game. He defended very well. But yeah, it wasn't the worst game I've ever watched in the Premier League, but it certainly wasn't the 7-3 win to Arsenal in December 2012, 10 years ago that we watched. So yeah, but yeah, anyway, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.